Well, good day and welcome back. So I've been thinking the last couple of days about this recent portrait session that I had when the New Mexico film photographers met over at Ethan Moses' house a few weeks ago for kind of a breakfast lunch gathering, socializing event. And I brought along my Intrepid 4x5 camera with the Fujinon 135 lens and some film holders loaded with Harman Direct Positive paper. And I set up a little impromptu portrait session for some of the members and had fun doing that. But as you might know, Harman Direct Positive paper is a fiber-based paper. It's essentially the same kind of paper as Ilford's multi-grade fiber-based darkroom printing paper. It's a very nice paper, but because it's fiber-based and not plastic resin coated, when you go to dry this paper, first of all, it takes a while to dry, and secondly, unless you do something to prevent it, it will badly curl. And getting fiber-based prints to dry flat has always been a challenge, and what I've done in the past is typically will squeegee and blow dry the front and back side of the print so the surface is superficially dry but the paper is still limp and wet on the inside. And then I'll tape it face up to a sheet of glass with artist tape and let it dry in my film drying cabinet under a warm light. And that will dry it nice and flat. As you can see, this print is pretty flat. The thing about these, though, is if you do this for people out in the public or whatever, and you want to give them the direct positive print right then and there, and you don't have time to go through the whole process of drying it and, waiting for it to totally dry and flatten, how do you give them a still damp, limp, fiber-based print? And because, the emulsion surface is also kind of delicate. So that's what I've been thinking about, and I think I might have a solution. If you take the damp print, and if you were to immobilize it with a slight bend like this, so the print is face up, so you're basically pre-bending it in the direction opposite to the way it will dry and curl naturally, in some kind of a fixture that is cheaply made out of cheap materials and easy to do, easy to make, and then you basically give that to them in this little fixture, and they can let it dry in that fixture when they get it home, and it'll be ready to present or ready to frame or whatever they want to do with it. This is my initial sketch. You want to have the print immobilized with a curve so that it's face up to sort of counteract the natural tendency for it to curl toward the face. And then I initially sketched some kind of like a cardstock or a cardboard box that you could fold up from a flat sheet of paper with a central supporting rib, like a piece of paper cardstock in the middle. And the two ends of the paper are kind of anchored at the bottom ends of the box, and it kind of curves over this central rib to create this kind of arch system. And then you could just put the whole thing into a Ziploc sandwich baggie and hand it to them, and it would be dust proof. The baggie would keep the dust off it. They wouldn't get fingerprints on it while it dries. That was my initial idea. And then I thought about maybe you could fold that entire thing from one piece of paper or cardstock, maybe some kind of a joint here that traps the edge of the print in the corner on each side, and then this folded support in the middle is what the print arches over. And then I took this, or a sample print like this, and I sort of bent it and figured out what the dimensions would need to be. And I came up with, well, first of all, the 4x5 prints are roughly 10 centimeters, 100 millimeters wide approximately. And I figured if you had an arch here that spanned about 12 centimeters, and the middle of it was raised about 2 centimeters, that you would have an adequate kind of an arch like that. And then I started sketching the more simplified version, just a fold, and then a central fold, and then another one here. Well, this is all kind of flimsy, made out of paper. I just used regular printer paper, copy paper, to build the initial prototypes of this. And then I needed a second part. And the second part is this other part. It's 14 centimeters wide with 3 centimeter folds, and that curves over this top piece and tucks down underneath it, and those would get taped together. So you would essentially, what you have therefore is this bottom piece with the central rib is taped together with a piece of tape on either side, and then this cover piece folds over it, tucks down, and then there's tape on this side and this side to hold it together. So you have kind of a little pouch that you could slip the print into. And this is the finished prototype. So this is made from standard letter size copy paper. One of the pieces of Harman Direct Positive paper with the emulsion side facing up, and you just slip it in there like that. And then the coup de grace here is you get an inexpensive sandwich bag. The whole thing is inexpensive because a sandwich bag, one sheet of letter size paper, and a couple pieces of tape. And now you have this little pouch with some air in it, and this is what you hand to your customer, to your client. The print will be protected in here as it dries. You won't get, particles of hair, lint, and dust and all that wants to stick to the damp emulsion. It'll be protected from that, and it can dry, and hopefully the natural curling tendency of the paper will be reversed enough to form, hopefully, a nice flat print. All right, real quickly, just to give you the dimensions of those two pieces of paper. This first paper is overall size of 22 centimeters by 10 centimeters, and you fold it along the long side, the 22 centimeter side. You have 3 centimeter section, a 6 centimeter section, a 2 centimeter, a 2 centimeter, and again a 6 and a 3, and you fold them symmetrically like that. And then the smaller piece is 20 centimeters by 10 centimeters, and you have 2 3 centimeter folds on either end of the long side, and that leaves a 14 centimeter long section in the middle. That's the arched part. And you'll take this part and you'll put it over this part, and these two tabs here fold over to the bottom underneath it, and they get taped, and the ridge gets taped together also. Well, of course, making a prototype out of thin printer paper is one thing, but I think we should try this out. I have a Harman Direct Positive print, and then I think I'm going to try making a working version of this little holder out of cardstock. Alright, so I have my two pieces of paper cut out from cardstock. Now I have little tick marks for the folds. I'm going to use a ballpoint pen, and I'm going to press very hard, draw those folding lines, and the ballpoint pen is a good way to score the paper so that it'll easily fold by hand when you need to put it together. Okay, here's the two pieces of cardstock that have been scored with my John Lewis mechanical antique repair ballpoint pen. And so I think what I'll do is I'll just simulate the whole process of from when the prints are wet, rinsing in a tray, to putting this together and squeegeeing the prints and presenting it to the client. So I think I will just carry a stack of these two kinds of cards with me when I'm out taking photos, and I'll carry a roll of Scotch tape, and I can just fold these, crease them, and tape them together as the print has been squeegeed and drying for a few minutes. And of course I'll also bring a few plastic baggies. So let's try this and see what happens. Okay, so this is going to be a simulation that I am out in the field. I've made a Harman Direct Positive portrait. I've finished processing it in a developing tank, and now I'm going to have a little tray here, just pour some water in there, and we're going to take our print, which was a underexposure, and we're just going to soak it in the water for a few minutes just to give it the simulated effect of having been processed wet, and just like you would expect a fiber-based print to feel once it's wet. Okay, I'm going to set that aside. Well, it's also assumed that when you are rinsing the prints out in the field, you want to use a rinse aid with the final rinse water. Rinse aid will dramatically reduce the archival rinsing time, and so you can have it soaking in the rinse aid solution while you're folding up and making your little holder for the print. Okay, let's start folding our little
piece here while the print is soaking in its final rinse. We will, scoring this paper with ballpoint pen really helps a lot. There's our bottom piece. Here's our top piece. Okay. We'll have a roll of tape with us when we do this out in the field. We're going to tape the central ridge so that it stays a little more secure, like that. Okay. Then the overarching piece like that, and like that. You can see now the two different lengths of pieces causes this thing to start bowing, which is what we want. Okay. Wow, that looks pretty cool. All right, so this is our print. And I'm going to want to have some paper towels, obviously. This little plastic clipboard, I think, is going to work as a squeegeeing surface. It's nice and portable. And I usually squeegee the back side of the prints first, is my habit. And then you want to wipe off all the excess water from that squeegeeing. Try to dry the back as much as you can since it doesn't have a gelatin coating on it. And the other problem is, okay, peeling it off. Then what you want to do is dry the front, the clipboard here. And then I'm going to leave the corner of this so I can peel it off a little easier. Dry the blade of the squeegee, and then do the other half here. So this is about how you would expect a fiber-based Harman Direct Positive print to feel. It's superficially dry on the front and back side. The back side feels dry. The front side feels a little tacky or sticky because the gelatin emulsion is now wet and saturated with water. It's also very susceptible to getting particles of grit and lint and stuff like that. So now let's try placing our print in our little holder like that. And we will, I think it's going to work because it's not actually touching anywhere except on the very edge. So let's put it in the baggie. And then I think I'm going to take it outside and air dry this in the sun. I'm going to try to keep as much air in the baggie as I can. And we're going to tell the customer, the client, to take it home and leave it out in the sun and let it dry as much as possible. We'll see if it indeed dries with less curl than you would expect. Okay, it's only been about 10 minutes, and you may be able to see already the baggie is already starting to get some moisture build up on the inside of it, which is a good sign that the print is definitely starting to heat up and drying out. We may have to, partway through this process, open the baggie up and let some of the excess moisture out. Well, I let it sit out in the sunny front porch. It finally got sunny. You know, early in the mornings we're in the shadow of the sandias. Okay, so I did put one of these blue shop towel kind of paper towels in here just to soak up some of the additional moisture, and this thing got nice and toasty out there. And there's still a little bit of condensation you can see in the bag, and there's actually a little bit of moisture on the cardstock bracket itself. Let's see how the print turned out. All right, so this is the bracket. It was nice and warm out there. And the print, it has a kind of a nice reverse curl, which is almost what you need, really, with this kind of paper. And it is dry. There's a certain stiffness to it, like you would expect. There is a little bit of a kind of a ridge in the middle, and then toward the ends, the sides, it curls up a little bit like it wants to do naturally, but I think it's going to be flat enough to easily mount on a mat board or in a frame or whatever. So it certainly is better than what happens to this paper originally. If you just let it dry open, it'll basically curl like that really badly. So yeah, I think there's a chance that this might be a good idea to, when you're doing portraits out in public, on Harman Direct Positive paper, and you can give these prints to your clients in this wet state, a damp state like that. Put it in the baggie, send them home with it, and they'll have themselves a nice, dry, clean, fairly flat print. It looks like it works good.
Well, it's an interesting idea, and I just started thinking about this today, so this is my initial thought on it that seems reasonable and easy to make and very inexpensive. I think you could pre-build a number of these before you go out into the public arena or whatever with your camera and your Harman Direct Positive paper in the film holders, and I think it's an inexpensive solution to offer people a still damp Harman Direct Positive print that hopefully will dry fairly flat and clean. I'd love to hear from you down below. Leave a comment and let's have a discussion about it. And if you have any other questions about Harman Direct Positive paper in general that maybe I can answer, or maybe one of you guys has the answer also. But until next time, I encourage you guys, stay safe and stay creative and have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye for now.